Hello, everyone. I don't think we need much of an introduction, so let's just get started with 7 things I would tell myself at the start of my art journey, or even just a couple years ago. For the record, I'm not a professional artist or anywhere close. I have been told I'm at around an intermediate level, and I agree with that. These tips aren't to become a professional, these are just things that I think could have sped up my progress to this point. In the background, I'm just going to put a speed paint, so this video is mostly made for background noise, and you can draw or do whatever else while you listen. Alright, let's get started. My first tip is think in 3 dimensions. I want my past self to stop thinking of each drawing as a flat layer and start thinking of it as an intricate shape, like a real person would be. Let's take this drawing for example. I think there are good elements to this, but the biggest hurdle I had to get over as an artist was thinking of each piece of the drawing as a flat object. If I had thought of this person as a 3 dimensional shape, I think I would have understood how to shade a lot better. The anatomy isn't great, but that's not a separate issue. They're very much connected. As you can see, the skull does not align with where the eyes are placed because I thought of drawing each feature as pasting it onto the face instead of visualizing how that object looks and bends in multiple directions. For my second tip, I would tell myself to focus on shapes instead of lines. I'm sure this is a very common tip, but let's look at this piece again. Yes, there are shapes, but they're all stiff because they started out as lines. Now let's look at this piece instead. Again, there are shapes present in the drawing, but they're overrun by the excess of lines. The highlight in the hair, the eyebrows, the lines around the eyes. They're not shown by a difference in shape or color transitions between them, but lines. What's the problem with this? Well, reality isn't based in lines. Everything is a shape. This definitely ties into my first tip of seeing things in 3D, because once you do, you'll realize that there are very few distinguishing lines between things. As an example, let's try to get rid of some of these lines and replace them with shapes. Okay, so here's what I did to change the lines to shapes. I didn't want to change the style too drastically, but I made the eyebrows into rectangles from lines, changed the hair highlight to a block shape instead of a line, and turned the nostrils into small circles. The new version has less detail since I didn't spend a lot of time fixing it, but I think it still looks better than the original because the shapes show more than the lines do. My third tip is that guidelines will take you a long way. Let's take this piece. I really don't want to be too mean about this, but the anatomy isn't looking so great. I am going to attempt to fix this with a basic knowledge of facial guidelines. I'm sure you're already familiar with this, but so was I at the time. If we look at this piece, we can see the eyes are about 2/3 of the way up the face, when they're supposed to be around half. I usually do a little bit less. So when we take this piece and liquefy the crap out of it, we end up with this. It's not great, but when compared to the original, we can see how much more accurate the face looks. This before and after really highlights how far up the eyes were compared to where they should be. If I had spent more time as an art baby learning how to accurately portray the guidelines and place the features where they're supposed to be, I think I could have improved a lot faster. My fourth tip is to break objects down into shapes. At this stage in my time learning art, I focused a lot on specific shapes. The shape of the nose as a triangle with 2 holes. This goes hand in hand with the tip of thinking of things in 3D. It's a lot easier to move around a triangular prism in your mind instead of the specific shape of a nose. With the example on the screen, I rotated a kite-shaped prism that is flat on one side around to different angles, drawing a ball on one end to showcase where the tip of the nose is. I do think I could have helped my past self a lot by explaining this method, because while my noses aren't very good now, I can at least say they're better than they were before.
Oh my God, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the?
You can break anything down into smaller shapes. People use an oval or circle for the head, a trapezoidal box for the jaw, a box for the neck, a cylinder for the torso, and so on. If the shape you're trying to draw is too complex, try breaking it down into more basic shapes. My fifth tip is that light and shadow are more important than colors. Let me explain what I mean by that. A piece can have pretty colors, but if the rendering doesn't make sense for each one, it won't translate into looking visually pleasing. I think this is why a lot of artists use gradient maps to color their drawings from grayscale, because it makes the colors match the rendering. If I spent more time at this point in my art journey learning how light affects 3D objects, my rendering would have gotten better a lot faster. My sixth tip is that things like skin and hair aren't made of plastic, but you also don't need to show every detail for them to look believable. If we take a look at some of my work from this time period, parts of the hair look extremely hard. They look brittle and plasticky, and other parts look too detailed, like over here where I was drawing individual hair strands. The skin has less of this problem due to the fact that skin isn't comprised of strands, but you can still see a bit of that plastic problem. There's a lot of contrast, but it's not contrast that makes sense with the light source. I have a hard time describing this issue, but you can see how muddy the colors are. The highlights and shadows are pretty random, making it look muddy. With this piece, I think more detail could help. Let's go into our improved version from earlier in the video and try to add more detail to the skin without going too far. With the hair, I found that the best way to allude to detail without making it look weird in some areas is to just throw some random stray hairs in, which makes it look not realistic, but believable. My seventh tip is to be more loose with the forms. If we look back at this piece, everything looks very tense. As a beginner, that's kind of to be expected. When you don't know the forms, you don't know how to make them look right, and then they end up looking stiff. Even if we were to ignore the anatomy mistakes of this piece, the lines don't have any direction to them. There's a lot of tangents, and a lot of the lines don't go anywhere at all. Your eyes don't have somewhere to focus because of the randomness of the piece, and because of that, everything looks rather strange even when ignoring the mistakes in anatomy and rendering. And there we go. That's 7 tips I would give myself as a beginner artist, as a now intermediate artist. In the future, I think it could be fun to make a sequel to this video in which I, as a professional artist, can give tips to me now, if that made any sense at all. I think that could be fun to see. It's also fun to make because I get to see how much I've improved over the last couple years. As a little bonus section, let's take a quick look at my improvement from last year to now. So this is from April 1st of 2024. So it's been 1 year and 7 months at the time of recording from when I made this piece. And I think some things I've definitely improved on are my torso anatomy, my arm anatomy, and my head anatomy. I can't speak to the legs, the clothing, or the jewelry, which tells me I have not significantly improved at drawing any of those things in the last year. So we'll definitely have to work on that next. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.